Hi there, good morning and welcome. My name is Chris Shelton, and thank you so much for joining me and my beautiful wife, Parisa, for this webinar on resilience training to boost your immune system and really to help you become the best person that you could possibly be. So for those of you that don't know me, once again, my name is Chris Shelton, and a little background about myself. For over 30 years now, I've been practicing the ancient arts of traditional Chinese medicine, Qigong and Tai Chi, together with my wife, Parisa. That's over 30 years because she also comes from a fitness background as well too. So we're really looking at, well, what does it mean to have resilience training? What does that even look like? And especially right now with what's going on with this pandemic and the elections, all this kind of stuff that's happening in our environment, what can we do as individuals to be able to build our resilience up in order to withstand the stresses that goes on in our day-to-day life and in our community? So what can we do as an individual to allow for that to come into play? Well, thank you once again for joining us, because my goal here today is by the end of this video, of this webinar, is for you to be able to have some simple tools that you can take along with you, so that way, once again, you can be the best person that you could possibly be. Slides, what happened to... Okay. Sorry about that little glitch in the matrix there. Okay, so first of all, before we get started, I thought what we'd go ahead and do is kind of get into the zone really quick, and let's just practice by taking some abdominal breaths in, all right? And we're going to begin by standing. If you're standing or if you're seated, just go ahead and continue to sit, but sit at the very edge of the chair and allow for your sacrum to tuck underneath. Tip of the tongue gently curl into the roof of the mouth behind the teeth, as if saying the letter N. And as we get settled here, what I want you to do is I really want you to focus on your breath, all right? So our abdominal breathing, and I'm just going to pull down the heavens 3 times just to set the tone. Inhaling and exhale. Inhale and exhaling. Setting our intention for this next half hour, 45 minutes. What do you hope to get out of today's webinar? My goal for you is to give you some tools to help build your resilience. And after you pull down the heavens 3 times, I want you to focus on the breath. Now, if you want to, you can place the hands on the lower abdomen if you want. If not, just gently allow the hands to rest either on the thighs, or if you're standing, just allow them to rest above the thighs as though you have a water balloon supporting the hands. Now, as you inhale and exhale through the nose, I want you to feel the breath come in. And feel the breath come in, the abdomen expands, front, back, left, right, all directions. And as you exhale, you feel yourself becoming more calm and more relaxed. Each time you inhale, see if you can allow for that breath to sink deeper and deeper. And as you exhale, just feel the abdomen relax. Inhaling. And as you continue to inhale and exhale, allow for the abdominal region to expand like a balloon. But as you inhale, I want you to feel the breath come in through the nostrils, through the sinus cavity, down into the bronchial tubes, filling up into the lungs. And as you exhale, I want you to feel yourself in your whole body, your cells, your tissues, relaxing, becoming more vibrant and stronger. Let's just do a couple more breaths here. Inhale and exhale. Last breath. And then from there, slowly bat the eyes open, coming back to the present, pulling down the heavens 1 time. Inhale. and exhale. All right, so how are we feeling? Okay, so that simple practice right there is one thing that you can take with you anywhere and any time and space that you are in where you are stressed, feeling overwhelmed. Just remembering to pause a second and taking a conscious breath is enough to disrupt whatever the negative thoughts are that are going through your mind, allow you to collect yourself. Because what most people don't realize is that when you take a conscious breath like that, during that inhalation and exhalation, especially if you're focusing on the breath, it's impossible for you to think of anything else. So remember to take a conscious breath. And if you're brand new to meditation, or if you're brand new to the arts of Qigong and looking inward and going inward, then starting off with a conscious breath is what is necessary in order for us to go deeper and deeper. And it starts off with one conscious breath, and then it builds into two, and builds into three. And one of my favorite sayings is for people that say, you know, Chris, I can't meditate. My mind is just going and going and going. Well, you know what? If you can worry about something, then you can meditate. Because what you're doing is that you're just focusing on something that's negative and you're playing it over and over and over again in your head. Just kind of like a reel on a tape. Same thing happens also too with meditation and with natural breathing. So it starts off with one natural breath and then it can build from there. So here's a little short video of where I got started and my old story of who am I. When we break down the word Qigong, Qi is the life force energy that emanates through all living things, and Gong is a skill in which to harness this life force energy, and in this case, in order to improve your overall physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. I did a lot of crystal meth in the day, and by the time I was 17, I had my first heart attack from a meth overdose, and put myself into Taekwondo as a means to change my path, because I realized I was going to end up dead or in prison or both. I started competing right away with Taekwondo. I did my first competition when I got my yellow belt, you know. And anyways, one night before a match, I was kicked in the back, which then dropped me to the ground. And doctor said, Chris, you know, you might be, you know, if you're not careful, you might not ever walk again. My mom was a nurse, and she worked for this amazing chiropractor who father, grandfather, brother, sister were all chiropractors, but also she had studied Chinese medicine and homeopathy, and she had a massage therapist working for her at the time, and they wheeled me in there. And he was a martial artist, and he started talking to me about Qi. Well, now I'm 18 years old, and I'm like, yeah, right. So anyways, I had other health problems too. I had severe sinus problems, digestive problems. I had a slight case of OCD, and I had nothing to lose. I started taking these classes, and back then, this is over 25 years ago, nobody was practicing Qigong, or very few people were practicing Qigong in the United States. And I kid you not, after about 6 months of doing these practices every single day, you know, you just wake up one day and you're like, wow, when did I stop living on the Sudafed and the Actifed, when I stopped living on the Tums and Kaopectate? You know, you don't know when it changed. Like there's not a pinpoint date, but you know that there was a change. And I thought, wow, if a movement, gentle movement in guided meditation could create this much change inside my body, then there must be something to Chinese medicine. So indirectly, because of the Qigong, that instructor I was training with supposedly was teaching Chen Sao Tai Chi, and Chen Sao Tai Chi is a martial art. It's the oldest system of Tai Chi. A lot of people, when they hear of Tai Chi, they just think it's what old people do in the park. And so what happened was, after I broke away from him, and then I found my Sifu, who I'm still with today, Tony Wong, who really teaches the traditional Chen Tai Chi. I mean, we're directly connected to Chen Village in China, the Hunan province, and I started competing with Tai Chi in tournaments. I've been in Inside Kung Fu magazine a couple times, competed at the national level. I was ranked 10th in the US at one point, so I dabbled with that too. And then finally with Sanshou, with Kung Lee's fighting, so introduced to Sanshou. Thousands of years ago, before man started to evolve and lose their spiritual centers, that there are channels in the body, and that there are actually points in the body, and that these vessels and channels and these organs correlate to the seasons, and correlate to different foods that you eat, correlate to different colors. And so that is the foundation of Chinese medicine, is recognizing when the organism itself and its internal environment is not much different than the external environment. So just like there can be a discord in your external environment, weather-wise or in your personal life, that's also can happen on the inside. So when someone says to me, even if it's a disease that I've never heard of before, and they say, can you help me with it? My answer is yes, because I believe that anything is possible. So there you have it. That was my old story, and this is one of the sayings that I like to say to people is that if I can change, you can too. Now, a lot of us have had trauma in our life. A lot of us still experience trauma, or because of the past trauma, as a result of it, it carries over into our day-to-day life. And as we age, it tends to get stuck in the tissues. It gets stuck in the acupuncture channels and the collaterals. It gets stuck into the internal organs of the body. And then guess what happens? We have chronic pain, we have inflammation, and we have disease. So the short time that we have here together today, I want to share with you what I've done throughout the years in order to help to improve my life and what I still continue to do. Because a lot of people think, well, Chris, you must be, you must have this lifestyle where, you have no stress in your life. And the answer is actually no. Actually, we have a lot of stress. We have a lot of obligations. We have a lot of demands on us. And so these very simple practices that I'm going to show you today, and these tools that I utilize today, is something that I have to still do because God hasn't given me that golden ticket that says, okay, Chris, the rest of your life is going to be simple and there's not going to be any challenges and any trauma. And the reality is that yes, there is. And so what I hope to bring you today is these tools that I utilize on a day-to-day basis, and especially when my challenges become more intense. But when the challenges become more intense, it's not just like I just pull these out of my hat. I've been utilizing these practices because I have to build up this resiliency to be able to ward off the events that come from the outside. Now, grant you, a lot of times what is going on the inside or how we're thinking will then manifest in our outside reality. And we think, okay, well, that's somebody else's issue, which it might be, or somebody else's problem, but it's affecting me. Well, sometimes what it can also be is because of what's going on inside of you that you could actually manifest that in your outside environment. So these simple tools, we have a saying that it's a simple practice with profound results. And what I hope to give you today is these tools to be able to help you with these challenges, especially with the challenges that are going on right now. So how to build a tolerance for challenge? Well, it's baby steps, and it should actually start off when we're young. And nowadays what I'm seeing, unfortunately, is that a lot of parents, and I'm a parent, a lot of parents don't want their kids to suffer. Now the problem is that suffering hopefully brings about awakening. The whole idea of our nervous system feeling pain is to wake us up. For example, if we put our hand on the stove and it burns us, that tells us we should not do that again. Now if we keep on doing that, then maybe there's a problem. But if we didn't have that reaction, we would never know to keep our hand away from the hot stove. The same thing happens with life events as well too. As these life events happen, it's actually good for us to be able to build up this resiliency. It's kind of like our immune system. When our immune systems are healthy and strong, part of that leads up to it is being able to get sick, get over the illness, carry that antibody inside of our body, so it builds up our immunity, which then carries over into our DNA, which then transfers over into our children. When I was a child, my mom used to bathe me all the time. Anytime I got a little bit of dirt or mud on myself, she threw me into the bathtub or into the shower. And finally, the doctor back then, he said to her, Alice, you have to let this kid get dirty. If you don't let this kid get dirty, he will not be able to build up an immune system to be able to ward off the intrusion of pathogens and illnesses. And it's so the truth. So the same thing happens when we have this tolerance for change. Now, one of the things that that I love to, or one of my favorite keynote speakers who passed away a few years ago, his name is Jim Rohn. He has a saying. He says, the same wind blows on us all. It's just the direction of the sail. Okay, so we all have the same wind that blows on us. True, maybe we might be born into poverty, or maybe we might be born into a home where there's drug abuse, physical abuse, or alcoholism. And so we have to fight extra hard. But the key thing here is not to be the victim of the circumstance, not allowing the circumstance to rule your life. Now, as you saw in that story of mine, that past story of mine, I grew up in a not so great household. There was a lot of neglect, a lot of fighting, violence in the house, and abuse, and I was out a lot of times on my own, out on the streets, especially after age 11, out on the street on my own. And all those challenges that was placed upon me, I could have still used that and held on to it today. I'm 50 years old now, and I could use that today and said, it's because of my mom and dad. It's their fault. They didn't nurture me right. They didn't look out for my well-being and those kinds of things. And the reality is that they did the best that they could with what they had and within their capacity and coming from their childhood. So the whole idea here is that we need to change the pattern. I chose to change, and if I can change, you can too. So when you have a tolerance for challenge, guess what that equals? Less stress. And less stress is important because if we're able to accept things and allow things to come in, then what happens is it allows it to flow through us instead of resisting it. Then guess what happens? It just flows through us. But if we have challenge that comes towards us and we're like, oh no, I don't want to have to deal with this and resist it, guess what? It's like what Eckhart Tolle says, whatever you resist, persists. And so that resistance actually accumulates inside the body. So it's like a shock absorber. Qigong itself, the practice of Qigong itself is like a shock absorber in the car. It gives you something tools and practices in order to deal with what's going on in your life. Learn how to let go of resistance and allow for the energy to flow freely. Because when we allow for the energy to flow freely, guess what? Then the circumstances kind of just flow through us. And I was talking earlier today with our class and our online class, and I made the comment that one of the things I like to do every single day is I like to talk to myself in the mirror. I believe in co-creating or co-manifesting as based upon quantum physics. If you've ever seen the movie The Secret or What the Bleep Do We Know About This World, they talk about how what we think about, we bring about. And in China, or in Chinese philosophy, they have a saying that says that your thoughts are louder than thunder in heaven. So be mindful of your thoughts. So if our thoughts are louder than thunder in heaven and we're thinking negative thoughts all the time, guess what? That could actually show up in our outside environment. So one of the things that I was talking about in this morning's class is that I talk to myself in the mirror. One of the things I say to myself is that I choose to have non-attachment to all the outcomes and situations in my life. And by having non-attachment, it doesn't mean that I don't care. What it means is that I'm not attached to the outcome. So either way that it goes. And so when I have the non-attachment, guess what? Then the energy flows like water. But if I have attachment to the outcome, like this has to happen this way no matter what, and I try to control every single situation, then guess what? It's kind of like putting a dam on a river. It backs everything up and backs everything up inside your body. In fact, in clinical practice, when people have chronic constipation, one of the symptoms of it is a person being too controlling in their life. And being too controlling, guess what? Creates resistance inside the body. And then guess what happens? Then it backs things up. So that's a great visual or analogy, but it covers what I'm trying to express here. So Qigong is a simple practice with profound results, and it really gives you the tools necessary in order to be able to handle this challenges that come up in our life, and also to process past challenges and past traumas. And the difference with Qigong as opposed to other mindfulness practices is that Qigong does compose the mindfulness aspect of things, but it also gives you the tools immediately that you take with you anywhere in order to process whatever is going on for you, or different visions or thoughts come up from the past, to be able to start to process those and get out of chronic pain. So don't just take it from me. We've had hundreds of students that have completed our Qigong teacher training program. And some of these people have been able to witness firsthand just how profound the Qigong is. For myself, besides surviving the heart attack and recovering from that and then the severe back injury, I also had other health problems. I had severe sinusitis, I had severe digestive issues, and then what happened was that after practicing Qigong for about 6 months, now I was doing the practices every single day, what ended up happening was that I couldn't tell you when these changes happened. All I knew is that there was change that occurred. And it's just like you just wake up one day, you're just like, wow, like when did I stop living on the antibiotics? Wow, when did I stop living on the Tums and the Kaopectic? Wow, when did I stop living on the Sudafed and the Actifed? I couldn't tell you when these things changed, but it definitely did change. And so I'm a living example of if you apply these practices to your life, what kind of results that you could get. And something as simple as just pulling down the heavens, like in this picture here, for example, pulling down the heavens is enough to really just recenter yourself and reset yourself. Especially depending on your spiritual belief structure, connecting to God, Tao, whatever you want to call it, or if you don't have a higher power that you believe in, just imagining this white light flowing through your body is enough to be able to reset yourself and reset your cells. Our cells, every single cell inside our body is consciousness. They are alive and they are responding to what our external stimuli is, but also what's going on in here for us as well too. So it's really imperative to be able to have a practice to be able to help you deal with these things as they come in. So one of the favorite things one of the favorite practices that I like to do is the practice of shaking it off. Did you know that we are one of the only animals or mammals on land that does not shake it off? And if you're part of the Qi Club, or if you're not part of the Qi Club, I hope you sign up. But if you are part of the Qi Club, you see in the morning, one of the favorite practices I like to do is I like to shake it off. And I say it's one of my favorite practices. You know the reason why? Because it's so simple to do. But us humans, when somebody makes us angry, when we have a traumatic experience happen, we do not shake it off. What happens is we hold on to it and we internalize it. And then when we internalize it, guess what? This creates disease. Now animals, they shake it off. A dog, for example, if that dog is happy to see you or if that dog is angry at you, after the initial encounter or whatever, that dog will then shake from head to toe. Why? Because they're conscious enough to know that they feel that vibration. The example here of these two ducks. Two ducks get into a fight in a pond. The fight or the squabble lasts a few seconds, and then what happens? They swim away and then they violently flap their wings. Why? Because they're conscious enough to know that they have this vibration inside their body. And so when we have this vibration inside their body, they shake it off or they flap their wings. Otherwise, if they're like us humans, they'd swim around the pond waiting for Bob to come around and pop Bob right in the beak. So animals do it. One of my friends, he has a gopher business, and he was talking about how at Pebble Beach they got a call that a deer got stuck in some barbed wire. So they took the golf cart over to the deer. They got the deer out of the barbed wire. They put her in the back of the golf cart and went to drive her to the other part of the golf course, more towards the woods, to set her free. And he said, you know what, Chris? He goes, it was the most amazing thing. He said, we took her off the cart. She collapsed to the ground. He said this deer shook violently from head to toe and then got up and pounced away like nothing ever happened. So what happened was that this deer had this traumatic event happen and shook from head to toe, and then guess what? Took off. And it's not something that the deer is going to keep on replaying and replaying. Now, grant you, sometimes we have traumatic events that our bodies will start shaking violently because the nervous system says, okay, you thought you could handle that, but you couldn't. I'll give you an example. My father was in Vietnam and was intelligence, and he was shot down a couple of times. And he was talking about one time when they were shot down in a Chinook helicopter, and they got out from rescued under heavy gunfire. He said later at night at the base camp, he was at the bar, and he went to go take a drink of a beer, and then his hand started violently shaking. He couldn't stop his body then from shaking. Why? Because his nervous system said, you know what? Yes, you're 22 years old or 23 years old, and you can pretend like that didn't scare you, that you almost died. But guess what? we're going to shake that off to allow you to release some of this trauma. Okay, so one very simple practice. You take this with you anywhere. The next time somebody makes you angry, your spouse makes you angry, your boss, your children, family members, neighbor, whatever, go into another room and shake it off. And you may have to do it several times. And shake it off. And inhale and exhale. Okay, so because when we shake it off, guess what that does? That builds our resiliency to stress. So not only does it help to get rid of the vibration inside the body of the trauma or the situation that made us angry or upset, but it helps to build up our ability to handle these situations when they come in. Because, the Taoists say, let's be a part of society to give back to society and learn from society, and it's more virtuous to be a part of society. And if you're living a part of society, guess what? Then you're going to have to deal with people and situations and issues. And so this is one way, so simple to do, that you can actually build this resiliency to challenge stress and change the outcome and trajectory of your life. Because what most people don't realize is the leading cause of death and disease is negative emotions. All right? So we just take these emotions for granted, and we just feel like, okay, well, I was taught because of my ethnic background, maybe because I'm Hispanic. My family's from Panama, and a lot of the family members in Panama, the philosophy is that you don't cry, you don't show those emotions. When I was a kid, you didn't cry. And how many times have we heard parents either say to us, or we watch parents scold their children, and the children are crying, and the kid is crying, and the parent says, "Be quiet," and then the kid's like, right, already teaching the child that they need to stuff it down and shove it down. Well, guess what? If we're taught that it's not okay to share these emotions and express these emotions, this is what ages us faster and also can bring us closer to death much sooner than what is necessary. Because according to Chinese medicine or Chinese philosophy, you should live 120 years. And that's living 120 years and dying a graceful death and not suffering to the day you die. So in heart disease, this is something that's after all these years scientifically, they still haven't been able to figure out, well, how do we handle heart disease? There was a doctor, famous heart surgeon, Dr. Dwight Liddell, back in 2014. He published his first paper on the 3 things that were causing heart attacks, myocardial infarctions. And he said number 1 was the statins that doctors were putting their patients on. That was number 1. Number 2 was taking people off of their healthy fats. So back then, when I had my heart attack, for example, the cardiologist actually, I had a list of things I could not eat. And guess what was on there? I could not have avocado, I could not have coconut oil, I could not have ghee. And those healthy fats, actually, he said, Dr. Dwight Liddell, actually contributed more to heart disease. So those healthy fats are necessary, but that was the number 2. Well, the number 3 thing that Dr. Dwight Liddell said, which I found was very fascinating, was that he said that, emotional trauma, and when we shove it down, this is also the 3rd leading cause. And he said the best example that I could give is to walk around with a piece of, 40 or 60 grit sandpaper inside your body. And if anybody doesn't know what 40 or 60 grit sandpaper, it's pretty rough. Okay, so the lower the number, the rougher it is. And so he said, walk around, and every time something happens throughout the day, throughout the week that upsets you, find a place on your arm and start rubbing that place on your arm with the sandpaper. And he said, keep on doing that. And eventually what will happen is that you'll see the red irritation, maybe the skin will start to chafe and such. He said that same irritation that you have on the skin is the same thing that's happening inside the artery walls. Okay, so what is it that's contributing to heart disease? Is emotional trauma. And in particular, the emotions of abandonment, loneliness, lack of joy, or overjoy, which is mania, will actually contribute to heart disease. But the heart is also the emperor of the body. It dictates how much or how little of emotion will be expressed. So 7.4 million people. All right, here's the next one. Diabetes and cancer. Now this is due to spleen and stomach disharmonies, And so the emotions of worry, pensiveness, over intellectualizing, thinking too much, demand for nurturing, or if you're somebody that over nurtures other people and don't give back to yourself. Diabetes is on the rise, and especially in children. And yes, I'll grant you, it's the processed food, it's all the sugar, because sugar is now the new tobacco. Here in California, anyways, you don't really see that many people walk around smoking anymore, especially indoors. So the new tobacco is sugar. So sugar actually is the flavor, the sweet flavor is what benefits the spleen and the stomach. But what the spleen and stomach wants when it's craving sugar or it's craving sweet is that it does not want sugar. What it really wants is it really wants foods like sweet potatoes, brown rice, basmati rice, yams, those types of foods, oatmeal, honey, molasses, those kinds of things are sweet in nature and help to benefit the spleen. But diabetes and cancer, and the reason why we say cancer too is because unfortunately what happens with the spleen is that when it's out of balance, one of the functions of the spleen is to transform food and the fluid that we put into it. And then what it does is it helps to separate the pure from the impure aspects of the fluid, and it sends the pure fluids up to the up to the chest to be made into blood, and then the impure down into the intestines and out into the bladder. So if one of its functions is to control the fluids of the body, then if there's a dysfunction of that, it creates what is known as phlegm. Now phlegm, obviously, yes, we get into our lungs and then show up in our sinuses. And in fact, in Chinese medicine, we have the saying that the spleen produces phlegm and then the lungs store it. Well, guess what? Phlegm also shows up in the synovial fluid of the joints of the body, and also fibroids, cysts, and tumors and cancers, all forms of phlegm. And if you talk to most people that have cancer, one of the things that they crave is sugar, all right? So, demanding for nurturing, overthinking things too much. This is 1.5 million. Actually, this number has gone up since we put together the slide. So it has not gone down. That's the sad thing. You think with science and technology, these numbers would be going down. No, they're not going down, they're going up. Okay, lung diseases, all types of lung diseases, from pneumonia, bronchitis, asthma. How many deaths? There's so many deaths. 3.1 million people die each year from these diseases. Well, what is the precursor that makes the lungs weak? Well, one of the precursors is the emotions of sadness, grief, sorrow, disappointment, guilt, and shame. So if you're walking around with shame and guilt and disappointment in life, maybe you're disappointed in yourself in an outcome of a situation, then this gets stored in the lungs, and then this affects our qi, because this is what we call as a qi thoroughfare, where our blood is made and the air comes in, etc. And then this is what creates these types of diseases. In fact, I was talking with somebody last night, and one of the things that he said was that he had trauma inside the womb, or coming out to the womb. He had trauma, and I said, "Oh, if he had trauma inside the womb, which would be was that a prenatal experience, then you probably have lung problems." He goes, "Yes, I've had immune issues my whole life. I've had breathing issues my whole life." That actually happened to our oldest son. He came out with the umbilical cord wrapped around his throat and was not breathing when he came out. And as a result of that, developed asthma. Now, luckily, we were able to fix it with homeopathy and Chinese herbology. But when we have sadness, grief, sorrow, and disappointment, this creates these types of diseases. Now, most of us hear about, for example, we hear about people dying from cancer or from heart attacks, but we don't really talk about how many people actually pass away each year from these lungs diseases, and what makes the predisposition for the lungs to be weak anyways. Yeah, I grant you, lack of exercise or poor diet will make the lungs as well weaker, but holding on and harboring these emotions, 3.1 million. Now here's the next one, nephritis, which is kidney disease. So the negative emotions of fear, fright, shock. What are we talking about when we say shock? So seeing or witnessing something that is shocking. Experiencing something that is shocking, meaning maybe you survived abuse, or you survived a car accident, or maybe you survived cancer and radiation, chemotherapy. All that kind of stuff shocks the kidneys, and this creates and contributes to kidney diseases. Now what's interesting is that kidney diseases are also on the rise. I know in the San Francisco Bay Area, where we live also, we're seeing more and more of these dialysis companies popping up, and it's like, well, why is this happening? Now, true, I would say that some of these, well, the food that we're eating, the processed foods and the GMO foods, this is a big contributor to it. But I think it's all the over-the-counter medications that a lot of Americans take. The over-immunization. I believe that there's some immunization shots that are necessary for us to help to keep from spreading certain diseases, especially that come in from outside the United States. But there's a lot of them that are unnecessary that I feel, and this also is a contributing factor to weakening the kidney. So 2.5 million people. But if you're stuck in fear and frozen in fear, especially right now with what's going on, if you're stuck in fear, this weakens the kidneys. And your kidneys are so important because they predetermine how long your life is going to be. Meaning, how well do you fight off disease? How well do you fight off stress? So once again, Qigong is a practice that can be utilized in order to build this kidney Qi up, which then will help to build your resiliency to stress. Now here's another one too that's happening more and more, strokes and aneurysms. So this is a liver dysfunction, and besides diet, again, and lack of exercise, then the emotions of anger, hatred, frustration, resentment, and old anger are the leading cause of disease here. And then when we're talking about stroke, 6.7 million people, 7 million people a year die from this. This number has actually gone up also quite a bit. And what I'm noticing also in clinical practice is younger and younger people, especially in Silicon Valley, where the stress is really high because the cost of living is so high. Younger and younger people are dying of aneurysms as well as strokes. Okay, so boy, I mean, when we talk about disease and what happens as far as creating the deaths in this country and around the world, emotional stress and trauma definitely is a culprit, and that's why it's so important to have this resiliency to combat stress. One of the things I love to do is I love the healing sounds, and the reason why I love the healing sounds is you can take it with you anywhere. You can do it underneath your breath. You can do it audibly. I normally suggest to people that if they are feeling or experiencing something, to go home and to practice these sounds audibly out loud and really focus on the event that's causing the emotion. And one of my favorite healing sounds that I love to give is the healing sound for the heart. Because the healing sound for the heart is ha. And like I said earlier, the heart takes the brunt of all these emotions. It takes the brunt of all these emotions, and then it dictates where it's, how it's going to be expressed or suppressed. So as we talked about, the negative emotions of abandonment, loneliness, lack of joy, lack of love, inability to love also, overexcitation, mania, too much joy, those types of things can obviously create heart problems and affect our heart. So the healing sound for the heart is ha. And all you have to do is you inhale and focus on a situation. Now, if you're going through a situation right now that's creating those emotions for you, then I want you to focus on that. And then what you do is you inhale, pull a pink cloud up into the heart as you inhale. Then as you exhale, and inhaling, imagine the circumstance leaving like a dark cloud, going several feet away from the body and down deep into the ground. Okay, now if you're in public, obviously you're not going to be doing the sound out loud. Then you do the sound underneath your breath. Inhale. And allow for that to leave like a dark cloud. Now sometimes we may not know that there's something going on or realize something's going on in our life. I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, I got this stuck feeling in my throat, and I don't know how many of you out there who are watching this have ever gotten sad about something, get a stuck feeling. In Chinese medicine, they call it the plum seed effect. Well, during this time in my life, it seemed like everything was okay. I could not pinpoint one thing in my life that seemed to be wrong. But because I trust the system, I had that feeling there. So what I did was that I then lifted the chin, and when I did the ha sound, and this time when I did the ha sound, allow the circumstance to leave from the throat. So if you're sad about something, you're getting stuck here, then what I want you to do is I want you then to lift the chin up, inhaling. All right, and you do this over and over again, allowing for the circumstance to leave like a dark cloud going several feet away from the body. Again, by using these sound vibrations, guess what? We are slowly building up our resiliency to be able to handle stress. So even if you weren't taught this as a child, and maybe you were coveted by your parents to try to protect you from dealing with stress, or maybe you detached, became inert, so you had inertia or whatever to avoid feeling the pain, it's never too late to be able to utilize some simple practices to help to build this resilience, to be able to handle stress and to handle the challenges that go on in our day-to-day life. So, Qigong connects the heart and the mind. Now, you know what's interesting is that our brain, you know, a couple of years ago, a priest and I were lucky enough to see Eckhart Tolle and Deepak Chopra give a talk at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, California. And what was very fascinating is, well, it was a sold out audience, but what was really great of these two spiritual masters in one place giving a talk, sharing a talk together, is that they had two chairs that they were sitting on. There was a small table in between both of them, and there was like a little vase with a rose in it. And Deepak Chopra said to the audience, he said, I want everybody to stare at this vase and study the rose. He said, now what I want you to do is, he said, I want you to go ahead and close your eyes. And he said, I want you to picture the rose. And he asked the audience, can everybody see the rose? Everybody with their eyes closed nodded yes, or responded yes. Deepak Chopra then said, nowhere inside your brain is there a rose. So what does that mean? That means that your brain is just a reflection of your reality. Your consciousness is here in the heart. And there's a group of scientists in Santa Cruz, California, called Heart Math that are now proving that our consciousness is here. Because for not thousands, but for hundreds of years, scientists have been trying to find our consciousness. They can't find it in the brain. They've dissected the brain, they cannot find it. This group of scientists that are actually proving that our consciousness is here in the heart. So if you give somebody a sincere hug, it's actually shown now that both hearts, it's like a sincere hug, not one of these one-arm halfway hugs, but a sincere hug. What happens is that both hearts actually move closer to one another. So this is where we get the heart, mind, and body connected. Because in Chinese philosophy, it's a combination of your physical, mental, emotional, and your spiritual. So all three are equally as important. And when our heart and mind is in harmony and is unison, then what happens is that no matter what goes on in our life, we still show up with the expression of love and gratitude as the main emotion that comes forth. And in Chinese philosophy also we have a saying that it says, it's called Wu Wei, which is doing but non-doing. So it's like the surface of the lake. You know, the surface of the lake is calm. Now, maybe underneath the currents are moving really quickly, but having that calmness. So reversing that and going inward is, regardless of what's going on in our outside environment, maintaining the centeredness and having this heart-mind-body connection is so important to achieving this centeredness and also building this resiliency for life. So you may be thinking also, well, there's no way that a simple breath practice can build my tolerance for change and help me find my purpose. Because, you know, when we look at health, there's actually 5 components to health. There's our physical health, obviously, which is important because this vessel here we have to take care of because it's the vehicle for which us to be able to attain ourselves or to find ourselves. So our physical health, our mental emotional health is very important because, as we know, if we're not taking care of our mental emotional health, as I've been talking about through this webinar today, this shows up as disease. Our financial health, because yes, money, how we spend or save or don't save, this is an expression of qi, right? This is an exchange of energy. How is our financial health? Our fourth one is, what is our relationships health? Do we have codependent relationships with our kids? Do we not want them to suffer so they don't build a resiliency for challenge and change that goes on in their life? How's our relationship with our spouse? Does our spouse control us? Do we control our spouse? What is our relationship with our friends? Do our friends treat us with respect and honesty, or are they like your secret bully, where they treat you great when you're one-on-one, but when you're out in the crowd or with other people, that they put you down and make fun of you and tease you? So your relationship health, this also affects your health as well too. And then the last one is your career health. And your career health is your life purpose. So what is your life purpose? So how can these simple practices do that? Well, Priest and I have been lucky enough to be able to support a family and build a practice around these ancient practices in order to not only help ourselves, but to be able to help our community and to be able to help the world. And our main message is that, like I said at the opening of this, is that if I can do this, you can do. What kind of tools can I utilize that I can share with you in order for you to become the best person that you could possibly be? So the reality about stress reduction is that our minds are powerful and we can manifest pretty much whatever we want. God gives us this ability. Yes, we have the divine tasks, right, of our life. What are we supposed to be doing or whatnot? But what God gives us also is it gives us this thing called free will. And what is free will? Free will is something that we get to access. Now, free will can be utilized in both ways. Negatively, like we could have free will to become an alcoholic and or to overspend or to have unhealthy relationships, right? And yes, that's free will. Or what I'm suggesting here, which is much more powerful and enlightening, is that we have the free will to be able to manifest for ourselves the outcomes of the situations that we want. So how do we do this? Well, as I talked earlier, one of the things I like to do every day in the mirror is I like to do mirror talk. And I talk in the present moment like it's already happened. I don't say, I choose to co-create with God or the universe, the Tao, whatever, that this will blah, blah, blah happen, not this will. I say it as though it's already happened. And I choose to co-create with God that I have acceptance. Not that I will have acceptance, but I have acceptance over all situations. I choose to co-create with the universe that I am full with vitality, that I am full with immune health, that I am full with abundancy. Not that I will have immune health and abundancy, but I have this right here and right now. So our minds are very powerful. We have a saying in Qigong is that your imagination leads the mind, and your mind leads the smooth flow of the Qi. So, very powerful statement. And once you try these meditations, you'll be able to feel this and see it show up for you in your inner and outer self. So I'm just curious, just from the few practices that we've done, the healing sound, we did the shaking off, we did the conscious breathing. I mean, how relaxed do you feel now? Just from these, few little practices that we've done, how do you feel now? Okay, so next slide. All right, so one of the things that I think it was almost 3 years ago, here at Yosan University, which is the major acupuncture college here in Los Angeles, California, we're doing a course with Dr. Mao Xing Ni. And Dr. Mao and Dr. Dao, they're both licensed acupuncturists, but also they're licensed physicians as well too. And Dr. Mao, I never forget, there's, I think maybe like 40, 50 people in the class, maybe more. And he said, okay, of all types of professions were inside the class. It wasn't just acupuncturists and doctors. And he said, okay, a raise of hand in the class here of how many people have found their life purpose. Or in other words, how many people here love their career? And going back to what I was talking about a little bit ago, a few slides ago, about our spiritual health being our career health, and our career health being our life purpose. And unfortunately, I think there's only about 4 or 5 of us out of the whole class that rose our hands. And he was shocked. He's like, yes, he said, this is my very point, is that most people, do not know what their life purpose is. And he said something that's very profound, that's always stuck with me. He said, before you come into this life form, you sign a contract with heaven that you are to find your life purpose, whatever that is, because this is the way that God or the Tao is fully able to express itself. Okay, so this is how God, the universal oneness, is able to show itself, is when you find your career health. And now, becoming a Qigong teacher trainer, not everybody out there wants to go out there and teach. But if you do want to teach, and if you do want to make it into a career, this is something that is not only going to support your lifestyle, but more importantly, it's going to support your health, and also be able to share this and support other people's health and improve their lifestyle as well too. Okay, so so a lot of people say, well, Chris, this might be easy for you to say because you happen to find your life purpose and found a career that you love. And I'll be honest with you, this is something that I stumbled across. A lot of people don't know this about me, or maybe they do, but when I was in high school, even though I was doing drugs, almost every single day throughout, my teenage years, I was very driven. And so at age 15 and a half, I started working for a grocery store and started working my way up to become a butcher. But also too, I was doing my AP studies in art, and then also too, starting my sophomore year, I would go to high school part-time, and then I'd go to an adult educational course called CCOC, where I was taking, and even during the summer months, I was taking courses in becoming a mechanic. So I got my Class A state brake license for overhauling engines, tune-ups and electrical systems. So I thought, okay, if I don't make it as a butcher, I'll be an artist or a graphic designer. If I don't make it as an artist, then I'll always become a mechanic. And healer, instructor, teacher was not on my radar whatsoever. So no, this is something that I had discovered over time. But Qigong was the method which then opened me up to my higher self to allow for me to discover this for myself. This is a silly picture. So what happened was that when I actually got a chance, I was studying Qigong. I had studied for about 11 years. I finished 4 years of a medical Qigong program, did it more than once. I did this Infinity program with this instructor. I sat on it for like 2 years because at the time I was a single father of 2 kids. I was a butcher, a meat manager, and when I got offered to get into a clinic in Los Gatos, California with an acupuncturist and a chiropractor, massage therapist, I didn't know how I was going to go from being a butcher, managing these knuckleheads and cutting up dead cows all day, and a single father of 2 kids, to becoming a healer and actually applying what I've been learning these past 11 years. But what I did was that I took a chance. I took a step, and trust me, I was afraid. I was, in fact, as a matter of fact, I was asked this question to come into this clinic on a Wednesday night. This woman named Janet said, you'd be great in our clinic. By Friday, out of fear, I had thought of all the reasons why not to do this. So I went to pick up the phone to tell her no, and a voice, I swear to you, said to me, Chris, this is your last chance this lifetime. And I took a chance. And man, I'm so glad that I did. And every step of the way, there were scary steps. There were scary steps all along the way, because I didn't have a lot of money. It's like, okay, how am I going to start this clinic? I'm barely being able to feed my kids and support the roof over our head. How am I going to be able to do this? And you know what? The universe stepped in because my intention was pure. And guess what? Every step of the way that was met with challenge. When I stepped over that line of challenge, it made me stronger, and the universe stepped in and provided for me. So, baby steps. The first 4 years that I was building the Morning Crane Healing Arts Center in San Jose, I would work 6-7 days a week. I average about 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. Now, I'm not recommending that you do this, but I would work as the butcher, go in at 2 o'clock in the morning, get off at 11, and then go over to Morning Crane. And then what happened was I slowly cut back my hours as a butcher, which is unheard of because you can't work less than 40 hours in that industry, or back then you couldn't, especially as a meat manager, until I finally retired after 21 years. And looking back now, I'm so thankful that I took those steps, because I've now discovered that life purpose. I now discovered that yes, I'm supposed to be this healer, this teacher, and I'm here today to help to share this with you because within all of us is a healer and a teacher. And our job, our mission in our life is to find that life purpose and to be able to share this with our community. Okay, so I can't see anybody on this webinar, but how are you enjoying the webinar so far? Okay, comme si, comme soit?
There's a chat.
Oh, the chat.
Your comments about purpose and the contracts we signed before coming into this world, I just remembered that when I was around 6 or 7 years old, I had this specific thought that I believed the reason I was here on earth was to make people laugh and smile. That's from Lola.
Oh, from Lola. Hi, Lola. Yeah, thank you for joining. Yeah, making people laugh and smile, but also too is bringing it back to what fills your bucket. You know, we spend a lot of our lifetime. At least I know I did. I was the pleaser. I wanted to please everybody and not ruffle feathers. And as a kid, because my childhood was so dysfunctional, my older half brother was, in trouble with the law, and my parents spent most of their time attending to him, and then to my younger brother, so I didn't want to ruffle any feathers. So I wanted to be the pleaser. I didn't want to get in trouble doing things. So when we look at, well, what is our life purpose? What could that possibly look like? Well, what happens by doing these practices is that I talk about Qigong and the energy in our body is like a vibration. And for most human beings, the vibration is very coarse and the vibration is very rough. And the best analogy that I like to give is, for example, you put a brand new guitar string on a guitar. What happens? You pluck that guitar string and you can see the vibration of the string. Well, as you tune the guitar string and then you pluck it, it's vibrating, but it's vibrating at such a high vibration that now you can't see it with the naked eye, but it's vibrating. Same thing happens with us. As we start to peel away the layers and go deeper and deeper, then what happens is our vibration increases. And so one of the things I love about Qigong is that it does not discriminate against race, does not discriminate against gender. Whatever your religious or spiritual belief structure is, it only enhances it, because if you are refining yourself and refining your vibration, this is what brings us closer to God. And this is what brings us closer to the Tao, or to whatever you want to call it. And the closer that we're able to get to that, then we hear the all-knowing express to us what our possibilities could be for finding and discovering that life purpose. So it's like a vibration. The more refined we become, the more we let go of worldly attachments to things. Doesn't mean you can't have fun and exciting things. I mean, why not live? We're human beings, enjoy your life, but it's just not having attachment if they break or somebody stole it or whatnot, just letting that stuff go. So the reality is that as we continue to refine ourselves and we process the traumas that have gone on in our life, we are then able to have more clarity to possibly find what our life purpose is.
Because you had answered her question, Lola said, I was a pleaser as well, fawning, so that is not necessarily my life purpose. How do we uncover it? Which is pretty much what you just answered with non-attachment. She said, so it comes to us through detachment and refinement.
Yes. Ding, 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 ding. Give her a prize. Yay!
She gets a gold star. And Carolyn said, Lola makes me smile every day.
You both make me smile. Yeah, you just hit it right on the nose. Is non-attachment to situations, going back again to the very beginning of this webinar, non-attachment to situations and to material things, and then continual internal introspection and refinement of our essence, of our life essence. Then this comes to us. What's funny is that I actually yesterday had two things happen, and in Lola, as a matter of fact, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I was training. We have this trainer, John, and Lola trains with the same trainer, and she's looking amazing, by the way. And anyways, I was on my phone because I had to text Parisa about the plane flight or whatever, and just randomly I had said to John, I said, oh, when are you going? When are you seeing Lola again? And He's like, dude, he goes, did you just see her pull up? I said, no, where is she? And then I saw her right there. But what happened was that I felt her. I felt you, Lola. That's the best way I could describe it. I didn't see the car. I felt it, though. This is part of that knowing. Later on last night, for example, I was talking to a client in Los Angeles, and the client was talking about some neuropathy issues that he's having in his hands and in his legs. And during the conversation, I said, part of this stuff is issues that you have to do with your mom. Now, I'm just talking to him. He didn't bring up anything about his mom. And then he said to me, he goes, how'd you know I have issues with my mom? I said, because I have this, I can't explain it. I have this knowing that tells me things, but it's not talking to me. It's the best way I could describe it is the knowing. The only way that this came about, and all of us have this capability. I'm not somebody special, maybe I understand these internal arts a little bit better than some people or have a way of describing it, but I'm no different than you. We all have the same capability to be able to do this. And what I said to him, because I felt you, meaning that I felt this, and I was talking to him on the phone. I wasn't talking to him through Zoom or anything like this. I felt him. I was able to feel that there was this past looming issues with his mom that, he's in his 40s now, that hasn't been resolved. So this doesn't come, some people have this, are born with this naturally. I wasn't born with this naturally. This came about through the accumulation of doing these practices, refining my essence and changing my vibration, and then this all-knowingness comes in.
So for someone just starting off on their Qigong journey or just kind of dabbling, how long would it take to develop that type of intuition or ability to...
How long would it take to develop that type of intuition? For everybody it's different because we're all like snowflakes, we're all individual. But what I recommend to people is that a half hour to an hour, if possible, of practicing every single day, along with whatever your religious or spiritual studies and practices are, this will come about. And it's not something you could force. But one way you could cultivate it, one way you could cultivate it is, we call this our objective observer. And what happens is that, for example, let's say you're going for a jog around the park or for a walk around the park, and your inner self says, oh, bring your checkbook along with you. And you think to yourself, I'm going for a walk around the park, why should I bring my checkbook? Well, you get halfway around the park, and then your neighbor's daughter presents you with, she's selling Girl Scout cookies or something, right? So the point is that if you follow that objective observer that said, you bring your checkbook, and then it comes to fruition, and you're like, oh, I could, I happen to have my checkbook on me. I could go ahead and write you a check now for those tasty little bit thin Girl Scout cookies. And then what happens? That becomes more all-encompassing in your life. Now, the more that you deny it, that inner voice talking to you about, and I'm not talking about the inner voice that tells us negative things. That's a different kind of voice. That's the paranoid voice, the fearful voice, the hateful voice, right? I'm not talking about that one, the self-destructive voice. I'm talking about the voice that says, maybe that friendship that I have with so-and-so isn't really serving me. And if you acknowledge that and make a change around that, this also develops in this objective observer as well too. And like I said, something is, a lot of times it starts off with small things, like maybe the voice said, like the example that I gave, bring your checkbook. You're going for a walk around the park, bring it. If that's what the voice says, bring it. Because what will happen is that this then will allow for this all-knowingness to come in. This objective observer really encompasses your whole entire being. Okay, so these practices, as I've been talking about, are things that allow you to build a tolerance for challenge. And especially right now, I really try not to put too much attention to what's going on with this whole pandemic and such. But the reality is that we're in the middle of a pandemic. You can't ignore it. You can't pretend like it's not happening. We can't pretend like there isn't a divide in this country. You can't pretend like this stuff is not happening because it's happening. You can't pretend like there's not violence going on because it's happening. But what can we do as individuals? And one of the things that I love about Qigong and Tai Chi in these internal practices is that When we practice these internal techniques, then what happens is that this circulates throughout our body. This increases our vibration, which then that vibration radiates outward. We're all a vibration, and we're all on this network. It's an invisible network, but we're all on this network together. That's why I believe in group prayer or group healing, long distance healing. I believe that does work. Why? Because you have a group of people with positive intentions praying for somebody to get better or for them to find what they need in order to improve their life or to improve their health. And even if they're halfway around the world, it doesn't matter. We're all on this energetic network. And even though it's not seen, just like we can't see the energy that causes our heart to beat, because the difference between a heart attack and cardiac arrest is, well, a heart attack is when there's a problem with the muscle itself. Cardiac arrest is when there is a dysfunction or disruption in the electrical circuitry that functions the heart. No one can see that energy with their naked eye. Now, there are tools that can measure it, but there is energy. Our bodies are energy because our heart would not function without this energy. Our stomach would not digest. Our bowels would not release and transform the food and the fluid without this energy. Okay, so we're all in energy. So when we change our vibration and we change our paradigms and our perceptions of our reality, then what happens is that we then change the vibration of the planet. And one of the things that Eckhart Tolle says, he said that when we have mob or riot situations, depending on the vibration of the person and where their pain body is at, they may not separately ever commit a violent act or do any type or partake in any type of situation like that. But if their pain body vibration is here and they get a part of a group of people with aligning pain bodies, then they may commit acts that they would never do because it's of the same vibration. During this whole pandemic, I have people that are stuck at home that were having back issues and health issues as a result of the stress that was going on, and so mad at the person who's running this country and stuff. And I would tell them, well, do you realize that your thoughts, those negative thoughts, even though you're sitting safely inside your home, you are contributing to the collective unconsciousness of the other people that are out there that are actually committing some of these atrocities. And so it's really reminding ourselves that even if we are at home, you say, well, I'm not a part of that whole situation. Yes, your thoughts are. So what happens is that Qigong gives us an ability. It's not the only system. It's not the only method out there. But it's been around for thousands of years. And like I tell people, if it's been around for thousands of years, there must be something to it. Because if it was false or fake in any way, the system within itself would expose its flaws and its weaknesses, and it would dissolve. And that goes for anything that's weak. People can maybe have this facade for so long of a certain image, but eventually that image, that trueness, will eventually show itself through. So it really does give us the quality of life that we want to have, but also the ability to change our mindset, to change our vibration. And so instead of being stuck on the negative vibration pattern, thought pattern of the collective unconsciousness, being a part of the collective consciousness, being conscious of our thoughts, changing our vibration, changing what happens within ourselves, changing the mindset, and then that spills out and then taps into the vibration of the rest of the planet. So to live your life purpose, one of the things that we talk about here, and Lola and Carolyn as Qigong teacher trainers, one of the great opportunities, and I'm sure you guys could talk about this, is that it gives you the tools to be able to enhance your own well-being. And then you start to see your health improve. One of our Qigong teacher trainers that we had, he lives in Costa Rica now, but anyways, in fact, he took the course from Costa Rica, but he had atrial fibrillation, which is AFib. And from taking this Qigong teacher training course, he's been able to cure himself or to remedy himself of this AFib. And the only way that they treat it in Western medicine is surgery, which is not a 100% guarantee that it's going to be successful, or medication. We've had more than one student sign up for the Qigong teacher training course who had autoimmune diseases, who are now out there teaching, and their autoimmune issues have resolved, or have almost completely resolved, as a result of doing these simple practices. You get to learn to be present from doing this, being mindful, being present, and you get to help others. And not everybody that becomes a teacher trainer wants to go out there and teach. In fact, I would say that about half of the people that take the course are really doing it for what's the most important, which is their own cultivation, which is their own self-refinement. But if you do want something that's very fulfilling, and you want to change your career and have something that is going to fulfill your life and the life of others, then this is something that definitely, and Qigong is on the rise. Back when I started 30 years ago, nobody heard about Qigong. Nowadays, more and more people, hospitals are implementing it. We work with the Special Olympics. We work with Santa Clara County hospitals, with the doctors and the nurses. And, we utilize these tools. We utilize these for mental health. And for trauma for the first responders, because the first responders, the amount of trauma that they're under right now, so we utilize these practices. So it's something that's becoming more and more accepted, like, wow, this is such a profound practice, and it's being implemented in our society, and this is a great time to jump on the bandwagon and be a part of this new wave of energy of natural healers and doing things that are natural. And ultimately, you get to spread the love and the light that you gain from doing these practices. So anyways, as we start to wrap up here, boy, I've talked a long time. I wasn't planning on talking this long. But anyways, for those of you that are interested in joining the Qigong Teacher Training Program, we have a new level 1 program that's going to be launching here. Within the program itself, you get a t-shirt, you get your own binder, you get my book, as well as Dr. Mao Xingyi's book which talks about the 5 hells. And this course is really, we consider it one of the most profound courses out there for Qigong teacher trainers, because what we're doing is that I'm not just teaching the practices because they feel good. We're teaching the practices to help you understand, and this is how the course is designed, is to help you understand how the physiology of the body functions according to Chinese medicine, not just according to science. Though we do look at the scientific function of these organs and the organism itself, it's really understanding how these practices actually relate, and how we can actually help to build a tolerance for challenge is so important. And and this is something that you can't put a price tag on. You can't put a price tag on health. You can't put a price tag on knowledge. Jim Rohn says, if you have a book on how to prevent heart disease, you have to pay for the production of the book, the paper, that kind of stuff. But really, you can't put a price tag on that kind of information. Same thing that's going on with this here. You can't put a price tag on learning this type of information, because it's something that you could take with you and then share with somebody else. So the next launch date for level 1 is January 25th. And by the way, for those of you that are Qigong teacher trainers right now or have finished the course, we do have an affiliate program, and you can email Parisa if you want to know about the affiliate program. So what does that mean is that if you get somebody to sign up for the next level 1 Qigong teacher training program, then you get a percentage off of this tuition cost. So anyway, so it's 50% off right now, and but if you can't do the 50% off, and you actually do the 3 monthly payments, and so sign up by midnight this coming Sunday and save big. But really, once again, I really have to emphasize that this is more about how you can help yourself and then help your community. And if you are already a Qigong teacher trainer, please share this with other people, because again, we really want to bring Shelton Qigong to the masses, because I really do believe, and Parisa really does believe too, that we have the most profound Qigong teacher training program out there because, again, we're educating you of how your body functions and to give you the tools to really live the quality of life that you deserve to live. Alrighty, is there any other questions as we wrap up here? No?
Just looking forward to the new year.
Yeah, so everybody, once again, thank you so much, and thank you so much for joining us for this webinar. Hopefully you walked away with some valuable information of how to build this resiliency for challenge and for change. You know, there's an ancient Chinese philosophical book called the I Ching. And its subtitle is The Book of Change and Unchanging Truths. Well, what does that mean? There's some truths that don't change. For example, night and day, gravity, those types of things don't ever change. But on this plane here, there is the changeable. And one thing that we can't stop is that change. But how can we learn to live with it and flow with it as opposed to resisting it? And that's what today's webinar is really all about, is reminding those of you that have been introduced to the Qigong practices of these are why we're doing some of these practices, like shaking it off, taking the conscious breath, doing the healing sounds. But also for those of you that are brand new to it, to really help you understand that it's part of our life process to grow with what's going on in our environment. And then as we grow, instead of resisting what's happening in our outside environment, allowing for it to flow through us. So thank you so much again. And I get Parisa in here real quick because the co-instructor here is the one that's working the camera and everything else from behind the scenes here. My beautiful wife, Parisa. So, you know, once again, thank you so much for spending this last hour and 15 minutes with us. I know that you have probably millions of other things to do, but it really touches us, and we're really grateful that we get to be a part of your life in some form. And until next time,
we will
we'll see you later.